I'm 32 male and live in a decently sized city. I work a steady job in IT, nothing fancy, but it pays the bills. A year ago, I thought I had things figured out. Good job, decent savings, and a girlfriend, G, who I thought I could build a future with. We had been dating for about a year and a half. She was warm, charming, and had a big family that she always talked about. I liked that about her. Family values, right? I'd grown up with a small, close-knit family, so I admired her for staying connected to hers. Looking back, though, I miss some red flags. She didn't just love her family, she worshipped them. They were her entire world, and she would drop everything to help them. I didn't mind at first. Everyone has their priorities. But things shifted when her mom lost her job and needed financial help. G asked if I could lend them some money. I gave a polite but firm no. It wasn't a huge argument, but she made it clear she thought I was being selfish. Fast forward a few months. G and I decided to move in together. I own a one-bedroom apartment. Not huge, but cozy. She sold me on the idea that it'd be easier for us to save up for our future. I agreed, thinking we were taking the next step in our relationship. For the first couple of months, everything seemed fine. But then she started bringing up her family more. Her parents, 2 younger siblings, and even her aunt. They're struggling so much, she'd say. It's so unfair. I sympathized but didn't think much of it. And then it happened. One Friday night, I came home late from work. The second I opened the door, I knew something was off. Boxes, luggage, shoes scattered everywhere. And then voices, multiple voices from the living room. I walked in and saw G sitting with her mom, dad, sister, brother, and aunt. All of them were eating pizza like they owned the place. What's going on? I asked, my voice steady but sharp. G smiled nervously. Oh, babe, I was going to tell you, but things moved so fast. My family needed somewhere to stay, so I told them they could stay here. Just for a little while. I couldn't believe it. My one-bedroom apartment was barely big enough for 2 people. Now, 6 more were crammed into it, and I hadn't even been consulted. You told them they could stay? Without asking me? They had nowhere else to go, she pleaded. You're always saying we should help people when we can. No, G. I said we should discuss things like adults before making decisions that affect both of us. Her mom chimed in, oh, honey, we won't be any trouble. We'll keep out of your way. It's just temporary. Temporary my ass. Over the next week, temporary turned into indefinite. The family took over my apartment. Her dad turned my living room into his personal TV den, blasting daytime soap operas at full volume. Her mom took over the kitchen, constantly cooking and leaving a mess. Her siblings treated my place like a playground, leaving their things everywhere. And her aunt? She used my home office as her meditation room, complete with incense and loud chanting at 6 a.m. I tried to keep the peace, but my patience wore thin. G acted like nothing was wrong, brushing off my frustration. They'll leave soon, she'd say, even as her family settled in deeper. One night, I came home to find my bedroom door locked. When I finally got in, I saw her parents had moved into my room, claiming the bed as their own. I was furious. Where the hell am I supposed to sleep? Her dad shrugged. The couch is free. That was the last straw. I pulled G aside. They need to leave. Now. She looked at me, stunned. You don't mean that. They're family. This is my apartment, I snapped. I've been more than patient, but this is beyond disrespectful. They're treating me like I'm a guest in my own home. They're not going anywhere, she said defiantly. Fine. If she wanted a war, she'd get one. I started planning that night. I wasn't going to let this slide, but I had to play it smart. Legally, G's family weren't tenants. They hadn't signed any agreements, paid any rent, or been formally invited by me. I consulted a lawyer to confirm my rights. Turns out, since I owned the apartment and they were essentially unauthorized occupants, I had every right to evict them. But I had to follow proper procedure. I couldn't just throw their stuff out, as tempting as it was. I served them a written notice of trespass, giving them 14 days to vacate. When I handed it to G, her jaw dropped. You're really doing this? I'm done being disrespected, I said firmly. They have 2 weeks. That's generous. She ran to her mom, who immediately launched into a guilt trip. You're putting us out on the street? We're family. "You're not my family," I said coldly. "Her dad tried to intimidate me. You think you could just kick us out? We'll see about that." I smiled. "You could take it up with my lawyer." For the next 2 weeks, they made my life hell. Her siblings trashed the apartment, leaving food wrappers and spilled drinks everywhere. Her mom stopped cleaning up after herself, letting dirty dishes pile up. Her dad deliberately blocked the bathroom every morning, making me late for work. And she acted like a martyr, sighing loudly and shooting me dirty looks every chance she got. But I stayed calm. I documented everything. Photos of the mess, recordings of their noise, even a video of her dad threatening to knock me out if I didn't back down. When the 14 days were up, they still hadn't left. I filed an unlawful detainer lawsuit, which was a relatively quick process since they weren't tenants. They were served court papers, and the panic set in. G begged me to drop it, promising they'd leave soon. I refused. Her mom tried to play the victim, crying about how heartless I was. Her dad even threatened to sue me for emotional distress. It was laughable. The court hearing was quick and to the point. I presented my evidence, and the judge ruled in my favor. They had 48 hours to vacate, or the sheriff would be involved. Her family was furious. "You'll regret this," her dad spat as they packed up. When they finally left, the apartment was a disaster. Holes in the walls, broken furniture, and stains everywhere. It was clearly deliberate. G stayed behind, acting like nothing had changed. "Now that they're gone, we can move on, right?" I laughed, genuinely laughed. "Move on? You think I'd stay with someone who did this to me?" She looked stunned, as if she hadn't seen this coming. "But I did it for my family. You'd do the same if you had a heart." "No, G. I wouldn't betray someone who trusted me." "Pack your stuff. You're next." She didn't believe me until I handed her a 30-day notice to vacate, giving her just enough time to find a place. She screamed, cried, and called me every name in the book, but I didn't budge. For the next month, she tried every dirty trick to stay. She claimed she had nowhere to go, that she'd pay rent, even if she was pregnant, a lie I quickly disproved. I stayed firm. By the end of the 30 days, she was gone, and I finally had my apartment and my peace back. In the months that followed, I rebuilt my life. It took time to repair the damage, both to the apartment and to my trust in people. But looking back, I'm glad I stood up for myself. G and her family thought they could walk all over me, but they learned the hard way that actions have consequences. So what's the moral here? Set boundaries. Stick to them. And if someone tries to bulldoze through your life with entitlement and manipulation, don't be afraid to fight back. If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe. I promise my next story won't involve 6 uninvited house guests. Probably.